Hello explorers and welcome to another video. Today we are going to talk about installing Linux automatically in a Virtualbox environment from just starting up, creating all the assets and then doing the final install fully automatic until we get a login prompt. So what you are seeing on screen now is what we want to accomplish. We want the VirtualBox manager to run through and create a hard drive, then boot that VM with all the settings required, and then running the installation in a fully automatic mode, setting all the different required parameters and configurations, and then ending up with a Linux system that is built and starts up that we can log into. And it was done now, so I can remove that. And it's very quick to do this. It took me about 12 minutes to run through the whole system on one CPU. So it doesn't really take that much assets, that much resources either, but it's quite interesting that you can automate this full flow. So let's jump over to the editor and I will go through the different things we need to do this setup. So first off, we have this configuration here. And this is a configuration for a program called Simple-CDD. And the configuration file is actually wrong here. I have called it CCD, but it's CDD. And this will create the bootable drive or bootable ISO that you can run in your system in order to boot Linux and do all the install. So the first thing I set here, boot timeout, that is for the main menu of the Linux system. So it takes 5 milliseconds, I believe, to just start it up. And so I just wanted it to continue. If you don't set this, it will stand still there and you need to press enter in order to start the installation. Then I will set up a profile here. I have a profile I call my, and it's an auto profile my. And locale is ENUS. I want to have that so all my error messages come in English. I want a Swedish keyboard. You might require another keyboard, but SE is for the Swedish keyboard. I want the latest stable distribution of Debian to be installed, and I wanted to use the mirror of FTP SE Debian org Debian. So this is the Debian mirror I wanted to use. I wanted to take only the main components. Here you can add contribute or non-free, but to do that you also need to add these flags here to say that you actually want those extra packages as well. And I say here that the max CDs is 1. So that's how many CDs or ISOs I wanted to create. And I also have a size limit here. It will never hit that. It's, I think, 800 megabytes. It takes about 200 to make this ISO, so it will never create that much. And then I have all extras here that I have added my profile files here too. So these are all the files in my profile, and we are going to go through each and every one of them. The downloads is for different things that you want to, different packages that you want it to download and have installed on your systems. Excludes, these are things that you don't want it to install or uninstall if it's already installed in the base environment. And then packages is more packages that you want, not just download, but installed when everything else is installed, the main system is installed, you want this as well. And then you have this UDEBs, and this is if you want other profiles as well. And this Simple-CDD profiles is required for the UDEB. So It's just a way to link that through. So all of the files that I've talked about now, I've just copied these from the default examples. I've done no changes to these. So if you want more things in your Linux environment, then put them in the appropriate file. But the one that I've done most changes to is this pre-seed, and this is telling the system which different options I want to set during my installation process. And to make this fully automatic, you need to set a lot of them. So first off here, if you want to set a specific profile during the install, the default should be good here, but you can actually select another install profile if you like, if you want to have more or less functionality in your system. I'm gonna install a server here, so I don't want a graphical interface, for instance, or anything like that. So the default profile should be good. And I only want to install Debian, but I can accept other OSs in the bootloader. It will not find any other OSs, so it will only put one thing into the bootloader. And I want the boot device to be the default device. Otherwise, it will ask you which hard drive do you want to boot on. And I also want to set the Force FEI extra removable and update NVA RAM. These are some things that I added for EFI, which is this more special bootloader in that your BIOS might support, some doesn't, so then you just comment out these. And if you have a non-AFI system, then you will set this as well. And later down here, we have the specific task that we want to install. I put standard as my task to install. You can say that you want a desktop environment. You can say that you want a web server, a mail server, and so on. But I just want the standard tools and nothing extra. The only things that I need extra is the SSH server, so I can log in and actually do things in the system. I also want to build essentials too. I have a GCC, a make, and so on, so I can actually build things in the system. And the popularity contest, it's something that you might want to be in, so you send some information back to the Debian team and help them out. I set this to true. If you want your system to be more anonymous, you set that to false. It's something that you need to answer during the install process. And then we have this reboot progress. I said that you just should note that, but you should do the reboot. So I don't want you to wait for a ferment to reboot the system. And I need to set a time zone. First off, I said that the current time in the system is UTC, but I also have a time zone of Europe, Stockholm, so that will put the clock 1 hour in front of UTC, and in summertime, I believe it's 2 hours. Clocks are so annoying. I really hope that we just get one time all over the world soon. And then we have some key map things here. I don't touch those policies, so I guess that was something that was in the configuration file already. Then you can set a root password and a user password. And if you're going to use this system for anything else than just practice, I wanted to create a lot of VMs to test some things out. So I just set a standard password here. So my user Wooden here has QWERTY as in password, and the root password is rootme. Of course, either you comment these out, so you will be required to enter a password during the installation process, or you put some good passwords in this section. And then we have the network. I put this mostly to auto, just give me something. I set the domain and the host name to unassigned and the domain string. I don't use any wireless in this, so I kept that string just clear. Then we come to partitioning, and this is a little bit interesting. Here we have also a lot of different things, and it was a hassle to actually get it to partition the system and don't ask any questions if you want to write down the configuration. So I put a lot of things in here. I wanted to use the regular method, and that means that it will create one partition for the whole system and nothing else, just a swap. You can actually set crypto, so it will create an encrypted system. You can also divide it into multiple different positions, depending on if you want the home directory to be its own partition and so on. And then I want it to confirm LVM. So if it needs to create an LVM drive, confirm that right off the bat. And I also want it to have all files in one partition, so you can select different predefined templates here. And I wanted to write a new label. I want to choose the partition, select finish. So this is where it actually selects, I want to end this process and confirm true, and also confirm overwrite, non-overwrite true, and part MD confirm, and partitioning confirm, write new label true. So all these things are just, okay, I know that you want to ask me a lot of different questions about, are you really sure that you want to write this to disk? As we are setting up an environment in a virtual environment, I just want it to be auto. I don't want any safety. Usually when you do a Linux install, you do it on your main system, and then you will want to be really careful that you actually write your boot record to the right drive. Here we don't have that problem. So next up we have the bootloader, install Debian and other OSs. So I think we already answered that question up above. And then we have an ATP setup here. So this is look in the CD-ROM first, and then we didn't set any more here. Lots comment out. Yeah, so here we have the mirror for the actual system if we want to fetch more packages. So first off, we say that we have the country of Sweden. We have the mirror and host name for this mirror to FTP SE Debian org. And then a directory. I don't have any proxy string. I tried to use FTP as a protocol, but actually FTP is phased out as a protocol that you can use in a web browser and so on. And these FTPs has HTTP endpoints, so it might be safer to just use those. And mail configuration is not interesting. That would be interesting if you want your system to mail you and say, okay, I am done with the installation. Then you might set something up here. We have the popularity contest here again. So these are actually some of the things that we already set. And last here, I don't know what this means. This might mean that you actually should look for more information in other profiles. So this might be some extended includes here down in the bottom. So that was my pre-seed. I have a lot of different configuration here. Some of it I've found online to solve the different problems that I had during setup. I wanted this to be fully automated, so therefore I had to set a lot of different things. If you comment any of these sections out, the installations process will stop on that section and ask you questions instead. For instance, comment out the user section and you will be asked, do you want to set a username and password? So that could be good if you want a semi-automatic install. So now that we have this, we can run Simple-CDD with the parameter conf and this configuration file, and that will create that Linux ISO, and you run that on a Debian system that already have all the base packages installed, so it actually can build that ISO cleanly. And when you have done so, the next thing I would want to do is set up a script that will run through and tell my VM Virtualbox environment that you set up this specific system and install Linux on it. So that script we have over here, it's a bat script because I run this in Linux. I set up the VB manager and also the VirtualBox environment. And the last row here, we will use at the last argument where we actually start up the VM. That can be done in a headless mode. Then you will do VB headless or VBox headless, or you run this and you can actually see when the system starts up and does everything that you want. So I will create my VM here. I will give it a name, and that is the input parameter to the script, and then an OS type of Debian, and I want to register that in the VirtualBox. So now we have a VM, and then I want to do some configuration of it. I want to set the memory to 8 gigabytes. I want to use long mode, so it will actually set 64 bits environment. I want to turn off the audio. I have never run any audio on any VirtualBox server environment. I don't think I have run any audio on any VirtualBox environment. It can be a bit of a hassle and actually be really bad to have audio in those kind of environments. Then I will set the bridge adapter, and this I actually looked up. I created another VM and I looked what the name for that adapter was. So this is one of the connector adapter I have in my system. And then I set the first NIC to bridged. That means that I have a network adapter that will get an IP from my external network from my computer. So it actually gets an IP on the network I have at home here. And then I create an HDD, so a new hard drive, and the file name, I put that in a temp directory. You can put it wherever you like. I give it the same name as the system. I give it a size of 10 gigabytes. Perhaps you can give it more or less, depending on your requirements. I will use the format of VDI, which is the VirtualBox disk drive standard image. And I want it to be fixed. So that means that it will create 10 gigabytes directly as one environment or one hard disk, and then don't change that. If you don't set this, it will actually grow over time. So if you install a virtual environment and do a lot of things to it and install a lot of things, it can actually grow out of your host environment, and you can end up with not having enough disk space or having a huge environment on your disk. And I want that to be fixed, so I know how large this Linux environment is. I will set up some disk drives and CD-ROMs or DVDs. So the first is the disk drive that we created, and this is a SATA controller, so storage controller, SATA controller, add SATA and controller Intel AHCI, and then we will attach that storage controller to port 0, device 0, and a type of HD, and the actual medium is the disk drive that we created. Next up, we have a storage controller for the EDI, IDE controller, and add IDE controller PII X4. It's a storage controller that we attach to port 1 device 0, type of a DVD drive, and this is the image ISO that I created with Simple-CDD earlier, and I put that in temp as well, so I can reuse that. And then I will set the boot order, so the first boot device should be the DVD, the second boot device should be my disk drive. And then I run the last command here to start my VM and boot up and do all the things that we saw earlier in our script here. So this was what I wanted to cover today. I hope that you learned something today. I hope that you found this video interesting. Perhaps you want to go out and play around with Virtualbox and Linux install scripts on your own. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section down below. If you like this video, give it a like, share it with your friends and colleagues. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. And I really hope to see you in the next video.